American. And then I ran for a small mid-major school on the East Coast called Monmouth University. And so we interview coaches like yourself, wrestling coaches across the board from Division 1 all the way down to the JUCO. And what we've found over the last 2 years is um, NAIA JUCO Division 3, Division 2 doesn't really get a lot of shine, and even outside the Power 4, a lot of people don't get a lot of shine. So um, we want to spread the word about a lot of great universities and a lot of great programs to let people know that if you're willing to be a hardworking student athlete, there's a place out there. If you didn't hit your potential or hit your peak at the high school level, or maybe didn't get the looks at the high school level, there's still a lot of potential. And if you're willing to work hard, we can find a place for you. So we're just trying to create conversations that we wish we would have heard about when we were going through the recruiting process, because we feel like maybe our guidance counselors might have left a few nuggets on the table that left out, or maybe they just didn't even know. And so Jimmy and I have traveled around the country a lot, and we know that there's a lot of beautiful places, and it's good for kids to get out of their bubble and experience the world a little bit and grow a little bit. So we're just trying to have those conversations, but also spotlight schools like Marian and coaches like you and programs like yours, and yeah, spread the word about the NAI. I think there's a lot of great things with that product, and there's a lot of cool universities out there for kids to learn about, and maybe not hurt their bank account or their parents' bank accounts along the way.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's what they always try to say when it comes to recruiting is don't overlook an AI. I know a lot of kids think D1's, the goal, they have to be a D1 athlete to do anything. So I always try to make sure that people know, hey, Marian is an option. We compete at Division 1 universities, so you're still going to get that awesome opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that's a very important thing in cross country and track and field, particularly. The stopwatch, the tape measure,
Doesn't
those things
lie.
doesn't lie. And like you said, when I was a junior college, I went to a lot of Division 1 meets to run. And I also had a Division 1 athlete got beat by a lot of Division 2 and a lot of Division 3 and NAI athletes probably along the way too. So if you're good, and the cream is going to rise to the top, and the coaches are going to get you to where you need to get, and that's going to take you to the next level beyond college if you're good enough to get there, because we've seen across the board uh, people outside of Division 1 become professional runners and track and field athletes.
Yeah, and I've seen that for personal experience, just seeing athletes from different divisions make it to the very top, and obviously a lot of kids, just reality isn't going to be that you're going to run off your college, but there is those select few that do have that opportunity. I had a teammate that whenever I was training professionally, she was a Division 2 national champion, and now she is a Olympian world champion. So it is possible at any level. It has more to do with the coaches and people around you. And, I always promote we are a small school, but that just means more one on one coaching attention. We do get to go to bigger meets, so you don't have to be a Division 1 athlete to compete at those meets. We're going to Ole Miss this weekend, so there's only so many schools that get to do things like that. But where we're at an NAIA level, we are able to do that, and we can go and we can win events, make finals. So it's still a really good opportunity for our kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, with the things that are shifting at the Division 1 level with roster caps and things like that, I
Yep.
think there's it's going to be important for people who maybe might turn their nose up to or down to different divisions or the NAI, that they're aware of these programs, because they're going to need places to go, because they're not all going to be able to fill on those rosters anymore.
Oh yeah, and that's something they're starting to do this upcoming season is looking at cuts. I've talked to a couple Division 1 programs that they're already going to start cutting down. It probably won't go into play until next year, but they're already making those considerations, dropping rosters. And luckily for us, we're not in that boat. So I think that's only going to help benefit NAIs like us, that we're going to be able to get some of those kids that are either getting cut from Division 1 programs, or they're not quite being recruited because of the differences and difficulties of making a Division 1 program now because of roster sizes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also people think, especially maybe from the NAI perspective, like, oh, these schools are in, off in the middle of nowhere, but you guys are in Indianapolis, and Jimmy and I have driven through Indianapolis, spent a night or two there once or twice on road trips, so it's a
Yeah.
good happening city.
Oh yeah, we have a lot to offer, and we always consider that a lot of the schools in our conference even are located in the middle of nowhere. But that not only athletically different opportunities for academics, so multiple internship opportunities just right here in our city. So there's a lot of schools even bigger ones that will tell our recruits, if you want to come here, you can't be a nursing major. It's just too difficult to try to do both. So we've been able to get some athletes that were being recruited by Division I programs because we could actually allow them to do the major that they wanted to do and be a student athlete.
We've heard that quite a few times, haven't we, Jim?
Yes, we have.
Did you throw a thumbs up? I was trying
I
to watch
did,
it.
sir.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I figured out
I
this
was
side does
I
not
was
work.
filibustering, but I wasn't sure if we were getting good content or not.
You
So,
are.
all right, good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back on the track tonight, and we are joined by a history maker and a trailblazer in the world of collegiate track and field, Coach Katie Wise. But before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that button. Follow us on Instagram and all your favorite podcast platforms. Drop a comment. We love your feedback. Let us know your thoughts. Jump on in and join the conversation. Support the show. If you're getting any value out of anything we're doing, you like anything over here, please buy us a coffee. Every sip, every bean fuels the next episode. And let's not forget, Airey Bros is a grassroots movement. We are about spotlighting the programs and coaches we wish we knew about during our own recruiting process. Runners, jumpers, throwers, and student athletes, this one's for you. And if you need training, whatever it is, if it's an ultra marathon, a marathon, maybe you got a couch to 5K coming up this spring or summer, we've got you covered. Check out Black Sheep Endurance for all your elite running and nutrition coaching. And our thanks to our friends over at CS Instant Coffee, built for the grind. Shout out. Athlete owned, trail tested, podcast proven, no waste, no weight, just elite, all natural, elite energy in every sip. Now on to tonight's guest, Coach Katie Wise. She is the director of track and field and cross country at Marian University. She's leading the Knights to national success and rewriting history while building a winning culture. Let's get into the hero's journey, coaching philosophy, and what it means to return to the Midwest and build a dynasty. Coach Katie Wise, she's the first woman in collegiate history to lead a men's track and field team to a national indoor track and field championship at the NAIA level in 2025. She was an NCAA Division I All-American at Indiana State. Go Sycamores. She was a 4-time All-American and an 11-time Missouri Valley Conference champion, a 3-time U.S. championship qualifier, and Team USA representative at the NACAC, a medalist in the 4x100. She had a gold there and a silver in the 100. She was named the NAIA Indoor Coach of the Year and Crossroads League Coach of the Year for both men and women. As I said, she is the director of track and field and cross country at Marian University, building a nationally ranked championship program. Coach Katie Wise, it is an honor and a pleasure to have you joining us this evening. We do greatly appreciate your time, and we're looking forward to hearing about the program in Indianapolis. How are we doing this evening? Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm doing great. It's been, this is my first year as head coach, so this has been an incredible experience so far. Honestly, couldn't have gone any better for us for this indoor season. I've actually been at Marian since 2017. Started out just a volunteer coach, just kind of getting my foot in the door a little bit. I had just recently moved back from Florida, where I was training with a professional team. Unfortunately, had to retire from running after a severe hamstring injury that I couldn't just quite get back from. So kind of ended my career there and knew I wanted to get into coaching. So took some steps to get at Marian and end up working my way up to volunteer, the part-time, the full-time recruiting coordinator. And then this is my first year as director of track and field and cross country, and then working with our sprinters still. So it's kind of how I ended up at Marian. But yeah, this first year has been honestly a dream. So winning indoor nationals, dominating indoor conference for men and women, and just being able to be a part of this has been, an amazing journey.
Well, we want to hear all about that amazing journey. We're going to get a little bit deeper into it. But before we do, if you have anything you would like to plug or promote, maybe Marian has some camps coming up this summer or anywhere you would like us to send recruits, or maybe any parents of potential recruits that might have questions for you, any of the schools or teams' socials, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so we're on Instagram, Marian Track and Field Cross Country. We have our MU Knights website where you can find us on there. We're always taking recruits, so definitely big on recruiting. So please feel free to reach out. You can find us on our website, on social medias. So we're definitely recruiting pretty much fully year round for us.
Okay. Coach, probably the most important question we're going to ask you all evening. We know you're a Sycamore. Have you ever had a square donut?
Have I had a square donut? I can't say I have really had a square donut. I've had voodoo donuts. So I've tried some very interesting donuts from there on the West Coast. But can't say I've had a square donut.
Okay. All right. The reason why we asked, Jimmy and I have traveled, like I mentioned before we got on. We've laid our heads once or twice in Terre Haute, and there is a square donut establishment near the campus, and so we went. And I grabbed a donut or two. I don't think Jimmy did. And then when we were leaving to get back on the highway, we saw a gentleman who was walking the streets of Terre Haute with a burro.
Yeah, Terre Haute is an interesting place. So yeah, we always called it Paradise. So
Okay.
Paradise or the Dirty is the other version, the other word for it. But yeah, I spent four years being at Indiana State. But yeah, I've been in Indianapolis since 2017 now.
Okay.
So, Coach, we want to get into your origin story, but I want to ask you, taking over the program this year, we knew Marian because we are friends with Coach Souter, and he was telling us last year how he was battling with you guys in track and field, and you guys had a pretty good coach that you took over for. So, did you know coming in that you were coming into a national championship program, and was there pressure on you taking the program over?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a lot of pressure. Only because I felt like I was putting high expectations for myself. And last year I was our assistant to our head coach, and we ended up getting third place indoors and second place outdoors. So knowing, we were that close to winning a national title, we lost a lot of very good athletes to graduating last year as well. So we did have that, can we do this? Do we still have a team strong enough to win? We knew we didn't want to get second. We knew how much that hurt getting second place. So obviously, going and winning was our goal. We did have a lot of pressure on our backs. We weren't the number one seed going into the meet. We were number two, so we weren't the favorite to win. It was against Cumberland's in Kentucky. They were the number one seed. So we knew we had a lot of things that we had to do right, and they would have to have some mistakes on their end. So it ended up just playing out in our favor. So we had a lot of really good things happen that we weren't expecting to happen, a lot of points scored in different events that weren't expected. And then it came down to the last two relays to secure it for us. So it was an incredible opportunity. And, winning a national title, it's, unbelievable to happen. And it was just such a great feeling for us. And, there's pressure now going into outdoor season if we can do it again outdoors. So that is obviously the goal. And we will have a target on our back now.
How do you manage that pressure? I mean, your first year as the head coach and you win a national championship. Where do you go from there? So how are you managing that pressure on yourself and the team going into outdoor?
Yeah, I told myself, I don't want this to just be a one-time thing. I want to continue winning national titles. So that's the goal in mind is, it's an awesome feeling. We brought a national title to Marian, but let's do it again. Let's keep it going. So it definitely does put pressure on myself because now I feel like it's an expectation that we do well. So I'm hoping, we can continue this trend going into outdoors.
Coach, you mentioned, your injury as an athlete and that kind of, you knew you wanted to get into coaching and that kind of maybe nudged you into that direction, maybe a little bit sooner than you had originally anticipated. But what is your origin story? How did you get into track and field? Jimmy and I are born into a family of runners, and that was kind of how things worked for us. There might have been a 5 mile road race at the age of 5 where a fish tank was involved as a prize that kind of set the hook for me. Do you have an origin story how you got into track and field?
Yeah, my parents always tell my story of, when you start walking as a baby, I basically went from crawling to running. So it was just an instant. As soon as I was able to start walking, it was a run. I've always had this thing too where I walk and would run on my toes. So
Mm.
just even from a baby, I'm always, straight up on my toes. So that just became kind of what I knew how to do. I think part of it helped me be a sprinter. I was constantly, strong calves, being up on my toes, just quick feet. But I didn't get into running actually until I was in fifth grade. So I was at a fun run at our high school meet in fourth grade, and they just let kids, go out. Let's see who the fastest kid at the meet is. So they let all the kids come out and run, and I just went out there, ran, and the middle school coach ended up finding me afterwards, like chased me down and was like, "I need you on the track team next year." So I actually got to join the middle school team as a fifth grader, which is for us intermediate school. So I got to experience track for the first time. Before that, I was doing basketball and softball. So started transitioning to did track on top of that, started doing really well. Was making some eighth graders a little upset because they didn't like getting beat by a fifth grader. But it was fun for me. I didn't really have form technique. I just liked to run and I was fast. So it was fun to do that and was able to do that through middle school. I did have some injuries though. In seventh grade, eighth grade, I started having some hip flexor issues. I think basically doctors explained it that I was just running too fast for my body at the time, so I wasn't keeping up my growth plates, different things like that. But ended up breaking my hip flexor, so I ended up missing my entire eighth grade season, and then went on to high school. Started running, ended up making it to state. My junior year, I actually won state in the 100, and then was third in the 200. So Indiana, they have one state, so there's not classes; it's just one state for everyone. So I was the first female from our county to win a state title in anything. So that was pretty cool being from a small school and kind of putting my name on the map. And then I ended up going to Indiana State. So was you mentioned earlier, had multiple success at Indiana State, All-American, PRs. I ended up running personal best of 7.25 in the 60, 11.15 in the 100, and then 23.06 in the 200. So got to qualify for USA championships, run against professional athletes. Was running with Allison Felix, Carmelita Jeter. So it was pretty cool to get to be, I always said it's some of my idols became my rivals. So that was a really cool experience, and got to run for Team USA in 2014. So another really cool experience to get to compete at that level. And after college, I ended up going professional for a little bit, but hamstring injury, unfortunately, senior year. Had to miss my entire senior year. So that was, really hard to senior year is supposed to be the best year and, going off of everything and all the success that I had. So moved down to Florida, was training with a NAIA coach down there with a team, training with some of the best athletes in the world. So really cool opportunity. First week of my first meet, I ended up tearing my hamstring again. So it was like basically all over everything I had worked for. So after a few times of that happening, I realized, okay, I think I need to go back home, back to Indiana. But that was, shortly after that, found myself at Marian. And I always say everything happens for a reason. And, if I didn't get hurt, I probably would have never ended up at Marian. And all the experiences of high school, college, professional level have all helped be able to be the coach that I am today and share all those different experiences and different things that I've learned to help my athletes out today and, build those relationships.
Now, was the coaching something that was on your radar as a college student? Were you like taking exercise science or exercise physiology or anything like that as a major?
So I actually went for elementary education.
Right.
So not related, but I always say coaching is teaching.
Sure,
So it does have,
absolutely.
a relationship that way. But I thought I was going to be an elementary school teacher and then coach high school. So that was the plan. Was I run professionally for 10 years, and once that's over, then I get into teaching and coaching. So when the opportunity at Marian opened up and I got in contact with the former head coach, I kind of just took routes that way, realized, okay, maybe I don't want to be an elementary school teacher. And then it just seemed like everything became a perfect fit for me. So being the head coach now, and then I did get involved teaching classes at Marian. So I teach some health and PE classes. So still using my teaching degree. I always say, it's still college kids, elementary school kids, not too much difference there.
Different but similar.
Coach, being an NCAA Division I All-American, was there any hesitancy on your part going to Marian and it not being a Division I program?
Not at all, honestly. I wasn't super familiar with NAIA, if I'm being honest, when I did get to Marian, just because when I was in college, it was never pushed on me. I'd honestly never really heard of it. I knew there were some schools, just didn't really understand what NAIA was. I think I was one of those kids too that thought D1 was the only option. So I kind of put my sights on that. But once I did get at Marian and, started realizing the community feel and, the team atmosphere, it did remind me a lot of similarities from when I was at Indiana State. So I really didn't notice too much of a difference. But especially since when I started to where we're at now and just seeing how competitive the NAIA has gotten is incredible.
How do you breach that conversation with recruits that might have been in the same boat as you or the same boat as me and Rich were, or Division One or bust? How do you kind of approach that conversation with them? Do you just show them the times and the times the kids on your team be like, maybe you're not a Division One runner?
Yeah, and that's one thing I always say. Do you want to go to a Division One program just so you can say, "Hey, I go to this school. I'm a Division One athlete," or do you want the opportunity to win conference championships and national championships? That's most likely not going to happen, at the Division One level unless you're top of the top. But we do recruit Division One type athletes, so that's how we're where we're at. We're getting those kids here at Marian because they like the smaller class sizes, they like the coaching staff, they like what we're doing with the program, they like the school as a whole.
What from a student body population, what is it? What are you looking at? Is it over 3,000 students on campus?
We're under.
Under?
So
Okay.
yeah, we're a small school, but we're growing. We've been growing because of the athletic side of things.
Hmm.
We did add, engineering program. We have a really good nursing program. Business school is really good. So we are growing in that aspect, but we're getting athletes from not just the U.S. but different countries, and they're coming to Marion because they see how well our sports teams are doing.
Yeah, Jimmy and I always say that we love doing this because it gives us new coaches and new athletes and new programs to root for. And I was glued to the computer watching the indoor championships, and was running around my apartment during the last two relays because they were right down to the wire and very exciting. And I think that's another thing that people need to be aware of is that, the times, like we said, the times don't lie, but the competition and the meets and all that stuff is just as exciting. And I think this year, particularly, I probably paid more attention indoors to the JUCO national championships and the NAIA national championships, Division Two and Division Three, than I did to the Division One championships.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I get more nervous as a coach than I did as an athlete. So, I mean, just being at that national meet, everything mattered, every single point that was scored. We ended up scoring 18 points in the 600, which is just heard of. We had three guys make the final that were not supposed to make it. So just different things like that were happening were just incredible. And then we had a thrower that won nationals. We had two relays that were national champions. So it's just everything that happened was just incredible for us.
Well, you say you get more nervous as a coach than you did as an athlete. So I'm assuming you got a pretty good poker face because you don't want the athletes to pick up on the fact that you're nervous.
Oh yeah, I was trying. There was a few times I just had to, walk away, catch my breath real quick, contain myself, and then go back out there and, cheer everybody on. But, that was the biggest thing, just holding your composure, not getting stressed, not getting mad, just making sure they know, this is exciting, congratulating all the athletes, even when we had moments that didn't go as we wanted, had to make sure, we kept everybody, on the same path.
Coach, one thing we like to ask coaches is when you are a coach and you're running a program, you're running a business pretty much, and we like to know how coaches man the CEO position of the program. How do you manage that? How has your position changed from being the assistant coach to the director, and how do you do things on a daily?
Yeah, so the last couple of years, I was starting to take over more roles just to kind of help get prepared for this. So I was doing a lot of, meet management, different things like that. The one concern our previous head coach had, you know, one, I'm a woman, which isn't very common for a head coach. And I can be a little, not super harsh, I would say, in those terms. So I'm more, mellow, like I'm not going to scream and cuss. So there were some concerns, how will I handle discipline? I always said the biggest thing was I know these kids better than anyone on this program. So I recruited 99% of these kids. So I've gotten to know each of these kids. So I feel like there is a huge respect there for me. So I wanted to make sure, I'm not going to go in and change who I am from being an assistant to a head coach. I'm still going to stay true to who I am as a coach and one of my biggest things I believe in coaching philosophy wise is, building the relationships. You have to look at them not just as athletes, but these are real people. So getting to know them individually, knowing that, they can come to me. I have their support, and just making sure they know like they can trust me. It's the biggest thing.
Has there been any cursing in the past year since you've taken the program over?
Occasionally it'll slip a little bit, and they always call me out on it. So it's not very often that you hear anything come out of my mouth.
How how do you manage in your philosophy as far as having a tough conversation with a kid, maybe disciplined, but still being yourself and being able to hear them out and be open, but at the same time not kind of judge them so they feel comfortable to come and talk to you?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm an easy person for my athletes to talk to, and that they're able to talk to me about uncomfortable things that they might not feel comfortable telling our other coaches. And it's always been like that. So I just make sure I go in open-minded, and I'll be stern with them. I feel like one of the biggest things someone can tell me is that I'm disappointed in you. You don't have to cuss, and you don't have to scream to say that, but that just you feel that in your soul. And someone that you look up to and respect, when they say that they're disappointed in you, that's something, especially for me, I would have been like, oh, wow, I just disappointed, or I better fix myself. So just having those simple conversations, and you don't even have to raise your voice, but I feel like they really take those things to heart and really want to do better to make you proud.
Coach, coming from as an assistant to taking over the director role, a lot of times we hear coaches talk about sometimes it's hard to delegate things, or not, maybe not delegate things, but to let other people, sometimes we can be, as head coaches, we can be control freaks and hold on to a lot of things and maybe not to get delegate. Have you been able to delegate, and have you been able to let go of certain things that maybe you had more control over when you were just working with the sprinters?
Yeah, I have an awesome coaching staff, so very supportive coaching staff. I have an associate head coach, so I've given him some of the roles. He's more of the stern voice, so sometimes we'll have team meetings, and I'll just give him that look, and he'll take over and handle the things that have to be handled, so I don't have to raise my voice. So I was told by our previous head coach to surround yourself by people that can help on your weaknesses. So that's one thing I made sure that my coaching staff can really do that. My favorite thing as a coach has been obviously the short sprinters, and then recruiting. So those are two things. I have a volunteer coach that comes on occasion, will help me out with some things. And then I have one of my assistants helps out with recruiting piece now. So that was probably the hardest part. I'm not ever going to get rid of my sprinters. I've already decided like that's my thing. That's what I like. But I have had people kind of help out with the recruiting piece. So we're kind of doing it as a staff now. So we kind of put some, this coach is handling these states, this coach is handling these states, and reaching out. So that has been helpful, because that's always been kind of like my role by myself. But with the new task and being a little bit busier, I can't put my full focus on the recruiting. But I feel like I get along very well with people, so it's been easy to kind of work with that and have people help out when it matters.
Okay. All right. Yeah, everyone loves the X's and O's, especially from their own particular events that they, did when they were athletes.
Yep.
I love doing the distance stuff, but particularly the steeplechase is my bread and butter. I really love that. You mentioned the recruiting and different coaches taking different states. Has having the red banner hanging in the gymnasium, has that helped with recruiting? Do you find that now people are finding Marian and reaching out? And how far are you casting your net and your umbrella within the Midwest, or are you going beyond that? You mentioned some international students as well. How's that going?
Yeah, it's going really well. So we're being a little pickier this year as far as our recruiting standards go, just because we've kind of built our program up. We're around 140 athletes right now. So we don't and don't want to go past that, just because it's a little difficult trying to manage 140 plus athletes on a team. And we're that's our max. So we do have some recruiting standards, different things like that we're trying to be a little pickier on. But we have had athletes, from all over. We get international recruits that reach out, that go through recruiting companies. So we get emails almost weekly of people that are interested in Marian. So it definitely has made things busy for us. But it's a good thing that we're getting noticed and getting some attention that way.
You mentioned 140 athletes. Is that the goal? Is that the sweet spot? Is that too many? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think honestly, probably 120 to 130 would be more ideal for us. We did get up to about 150 at one point. So really, when I came to Marion, we had 70 athletes. So before I got to Marion, our previous coach had 40 when he started. So being able to grow from 40 to 70, and then within my first couple of years at Marion, we were told we could hire another full-time assistant if we got over 100. That was my goal, was to try to get up to 100 athletes or more. So then we got there, and then we just continued building on that. So now we're realizing, okay, we need to probably slow it down a little bit. We have a lot of athletes, and uh, I don't think it makes it, an issue, because that's one thing our athletic director asked, like, can you handle that many athletes? Like, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, I already know them all, so it really doesn't make too much of a difference. And, so far so good. But this is kind of, I don't think we want to go over that.
You mentioned engineering majors. You mentioned there's a nursing program. What is the majority of the majors on the team? What programs do you guys offer besides this nursing and the engineering program?
Yeah, so our business school is actually extremely popular, especially with our athletes at Marion. So we actually have our cross country head distance coach is in the business school. So pretty cool that we have a connection right there. A lot of connections with internships for that, but that's a really good field, and it's pretty manageable. They work really well with our athletes, so it's a good field to do both in. And nursing is another popular one that I mentioned. We do have multiple engineering majors, but I would say those are probably the main three that we have at Marion. But there's, multiple different majors that you can choose from.
And as far as facilities, you guys have an indoor track? Do you have an outdoor track on campus? What's that look like?
So for indoors, we don't have a facility on campus, but we use our state fairgrounds, which is just right down the street. They just built a world-class stadium this past year. They actually hosted D2 Nationals this year, and then the Big Tens. So we were actually the first team last year to get to host our conference meet there. So I mean, it doesn't get much better having that almost in our backyard. And then for outdoors, we do have an outdoor track. So we're in the works of finding out. Hopefully it pushes it a little sooner, since we won an indoor title, but we're trying to get a new outdoor track right now. So that'll be brand new track once that gets done.
Now, is that a new facility, or are you getting like a new surface?
Yeah, so they'll completely take up the old track
Mhm.
and put a brand new track down. They're supposed to get football turf in the middle put down again. So it should be pretty much brand new. We're excited when that happens.
Okay. And you said you'd have regular access to the fairgrounds. You're using that like for indoor training?
Yeah, just during indoors. So they actually
Yeah.
take it down after indoor season's over.
Okay.
With it being a part of our fairgrounds in the summers, it turns into the hog barn. So there's a bunch of pigs in there, but you would never notice. But it's pretty
Interesting.
cool that it's a multiple purpose building.
Okay. And I would imagine, being in Indianapolis, there's probably some good internship opportunities available for students there.
Oh yeah. I mean, unbelievable amount. So I mean, Eli Lilly is just right downtown. So we've had multiple athletes get, incredible jobs after college that go there. We have a lot of different connections, especially with, different hospitals, things like that. But NCAA headquarters are here. So I mean, there's something for everyone.
And you mentioned in the beginning, maybe before we even jumped on, that you guys have had two outdoor meets already, maybe not in ideal conditions. But how is, coming off of the high of the indoor national championships, how have things been going training wise, and how have those two first meets gone?
Yeah, they've been good. About what we expect for Indiana weather in
Hmm.
March. First meet we had 2 weekends ago. Extremely cold and windy, so not ideal for an outdoor track meet. And then this past weekend, um, it was warmer, but off and on pretty heavy rain. So not ideal for first two meets, but the goal is, every meet, let's see how many standards that we can get for nationals. So obviously making sure we keep our athletes healthy, and then start adding on to our bus to nationals is the goal. And then we're hoping this weekend weather will be good for us. That's why we're going all the way down to Mississippi. So hoping we can get some great weather and competition down there.
Yeah, that's a beautiful facility they have at Old Miss. You mentioned filling up the bus for nationals. Do we have some qualifiers already?
Yeah, we do have a handful of qualifiers. So the first meet, we had some field event athletes on the women's side. We actually had three. And then this last meet, we started getting some running event athletes to qualify, and then some more field events. So yeah, the bus is already looking good so far.
Nice.
Who do we need to keep an eye on? Rich, like Rich said, we like to watch the
Oh
meets
goodness.
and cheer for people. So who do we need to keep an eye on going into?
Yeah, there's a lot. So we have a lot of, names that you should notice. I would say the one that stands out on the women's side is Katie Woods. So keep an eye on her. She had qualified for nationals in over 5 events, which is unheard of. So very good mid distance all the way to distance runner. So she's a name to remember. On the men's side, we have Christian Rios in the throws. He's been a national champion in the throws, All American. So he'll be one to watch for outdoors. We have Eric Materna that just qualified for nationals in the 200 and broke her school record. He can run anything from the 100, the 200, to 400, even ran the 600 indoors. Mid distance group, just as a whole, there'll be ones to watch for the 4x4, 4x8. Tristan Trevino, distance runner, 800 and up. He's a name to watch. Another one to mention would be Jeremiah Brown, short sprinter. So he ran 663 indoors in the 60. So he'll be one to watch as well. And there's multiple I could keep naming, but yeah, we have a really good group of athletes.
And I know you said you guys have a loaded roster, but I'm going to assume that there's going to be a bunch of kids graduating. So anyone listening to this podcast who is a senior in high school, what kind of recruits are you looking for, and what kind of athletes are going to fit in your program the best?
So that's one thing I've always said is, we want to recruit good athletes, but we want to recruit good people. So a lot of that, that means a lot to us. We're not just trying to bring in good athletes that aren't going to fit in with the culture that we have going here. So I always make sure I'm never going to offer someone before meeting them, even if it's, a video call, a voice call, till I've actually got to talk to you and ask some questions. I don't care what your times are. I want to make sure you're going to fit in with, the family culture that we have here at Marian. So that does play a big part. We do have recruiting standards, but grades are important as well. So we do have some walk-on positions depending on GPAs, things like that. So we have exempt athletes that are guaranteed varsity spots just off of their grade, their GPAs. So that's the biggest thing. I'm open to talking, to anyone that's interested in a conversation, and we can talk money later. But we definitely like to give kids opportunities, especially that are going to build to that mold of our program.
And you said you're not going to offer anyone until you have a conversation with them and meet them. And Rich and I know from our recruiting process that sometimes if the athlete is asking questions, that might actually be a good thing, right? Instead of the parents asking all the questions and the kids just
Yeah.
kind of there on their phone. So how do you do you have a sniff test? Do you kind of know within 5 minutes of talking to an athlete that, yeah, they're not too into it. Their parents probably want to run here more than they do?
Yeah, it's definitely, we always say, that kid might have had a little, some red flags, different things like that. I always try to give kids the benefit of the doubt and, push for another conversation maybe. But we have a lot of kids too, they're trying to just kind of weigh their options or see, how many offers can I get? I've kind of noticed a new trend on social media a little bit where they just, they want to get 20 offers just so they can show off to their friends. So we always want to make sure, obviously, if we're going to talk to you, we have a process. We want to make sure we're not going to give you a scholarship offer until we've had a conversation, until you've applied, until you've been admitted, and then we'll talk, a little bit more detail about money.
Coach, what are the unique things about the NAIA, sorry, is the faith-based aspect to a lot of the institutions, and I believe Marian is a Catholic university.
Yes, that's
Is
correct.
it is faith and spirituality a big component at the university and or within the program?
Oh yeah, I mean, with our background, we're a Catholic university. We have mandatory classes and different things that are required. The biggest thing that Marian does is they don't force religion on you. So they want to make sure, you don't have to have that background. But if you want to explore your faith, the options there and the people around you. So we have different student organizations to help explore faith. We have different athletic organizations even that are Christian and Catholic based. So that's the biggest thing is, we do have that faith-based, and that was something that was important to me whenever I went with my professional team. It was a Christian-based track club. It was the only one in Clermont, Florida. So that was, a big thing I thought was neat for me to be able to do that and then come to Marian where that was the focus as well.
And are students going to Mass weekly? Is that a requirement, or are they do they have to take a theology class?
So they have to take theology, but
Hmm.
mass is not required. So we're one of the few, I know even in our conference, that we don't require mass. There's some schools in our conference that they fine you if you don't go to mass service. So that's where that optional and then exploration that Marian allows, that doesn't force that on you.
It is available though.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we have mass every single week, multiple
Okay.
times. Yep.
Do you find with athletes who might be coming just for the athletics, eventually within 4 years, you see them going to mass, you see them going to church, and it's like, oh, oh, you didn't come here for this, but I see you at church every week.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, I can think of a few athletes now, for example, that I've just it's pretty cool to just see how much their faith has grown from being at Marian. One of a couple of my athletes recently went on a retreat even, and a year ago I would have never saw that. So it's pretty cool just to see their growth and connecting, getting closer to God.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up when you were in Florida. That was something that you were looking for with the teams that you were looking at. And Rich and I always say it wasn't really something that we were really considering when we were athletes on the recruiting process. But now, as older men, and we talk to coaches like yourself and have programs that are either Christian or Catholic basic, man, it's just another awesome component to what schools have to offer.
Oh yeah, and that's, we have some athletes that don't even realize that we're a Catholic university when we're talking to them at first. And whenever I just start explaining and, they're like, oh, that's cool. I didn't even know that. And how, the NAIA, that's kind of how it was built upon. So it's always a really cool feeling and experience and getting to tell our recruits about it. And then being able to see the kids actually grow within their faith is awesome.
Coach, I'm curious, you've coached both men and women. What are the key differences and similarities, and how do you motivate and mentor both aspects of a men's and women's program? Is it different?
I did lose you for a second. If you
Oh,
could
I'm
repeat
sorry.
that. Oh, no,
Saying
you're good.
you coach both men and women. What are the key differences and similarities between both those programs, and is there different ways of motivating both sides of the teams?
Oh yeah, I feel like that's something every coach has to understand, that men and women are going to be different, and you can be a little bit harder on the guys, and but you have to be a little bit more sensitive with the girls. So I can make certain jokes with my guys that I can't do with my girls because they'll get a little upset. So it's definitely feel like I get along with both just as well, and that's something I was just asked recently: is it harder to coach the guys? Do I feel like the guys respect me? And I say, yeah, like I don't notice a difference, and there's not many women coaches to begin with, head coaches or sprints coaches, and none of my athletes seem to mind. It hasn't affected my recruiting at all. I've been able to get elite, Division I quality sprinters, and I mentioned, one of my guys running 6.6 indoors. He's been 10.3 outdoors as a freshman, so I'm excited to see what he can do this year, and along with my other guys that are running very well. So yeah, I feel like it really, as long as you can relate to each person individually, because there's certain guys and certain girls out of my group that I know I have to talk to differently, and as a team as a whole. But the relationship part is key, just making sure I know each athlete individually and who they are as a student athlete.
So those relationships, Jim, that's a common thread we've been hearing a lot lately.
Yeah, that your athlete, like how many times we hear a coach say, I want them to win for the team and not themselves. And when they can win for something bigger than themselves, the best of their individual is going to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was, one thing I got a lot of recognition out of this happening, and I made sure we had a reception, recognizing the team, and finding out that I'm the first female to ever do this. I still told my kids, I said, none of this would have happened without you guys. Like this was all you guys doing this and coming together as a family, that you guys made this happen.
Well, they set the bar pretty high for you coming out your first indoor season.
They sure did.
Coach, you mentioned not knowing that you were the first female to win a men's title on the team side of things. Do you have any advice for any younger women or women kind of in the same position that you're in that maybe, hey, I don't know if I'm going to get the opportunities because I am a woman, but you obviously did it.
Yeah, I always say just keep believing in yourself and keep going after it. Because we see there's not many of us in this field, and a lot of people doubted, can a woman lead a program? Could a woman be a head coach? And I'm just proof that it can happen, and I can do it just as well. And that's one thing I've met a few female coaches, especially this year, and that was our biggest thing. We always say like there's not many of us. We have to stick together and encourage each other and motivate each other and keep the future generation of female coaches going.
Do you have any females coaching with you? Have you got any on staff yet?
Yeah, we have a part-time cross country coach
Okay.
that we hired this year. So I was glad, to get her involved in everything, and so it's always nice to have, yeah, someone else there. Just be able to have girl talk.
Do you get involved with the cross country program at all?
Yeah, so with me being the director of track and cross country, I did hire a full-time cross country coach, Presley Martin. So I work above him, but I let him kind of, do things how he would like. Sometimes, he'll ask me for approval of things, but I let, he pick the schedules, coaches the athletes. I did go to every single meet this past year, so I was there involved with every single meet. We went out to California for a meet, which was really cool. Got to go to nationals. So that's kind of my part in that. He does do the recruiting full time now for cross country.
Was this your first season going to cross country meets?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
So in the past, I would always lead the fall conditioning program for track. So this time I kind of split it. So I would just miss when we had cross country meets.
What'd you think of cross country?
Well, I didn't know how much running I was going to be doing. Just trying to keep up and go from point to point to watch the races. So I had to get myself in shape. But no, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun getting to see the different sides of things and getting to know the kids a lot better that I'm not usually, as close to because I'm with fall conditioning during that time.
It's funny how, as a spectator, sometimes you might think you're running more than what the athletes are running just to spectate.
Oh yeah, I was actually felt like I was doing like interval training because we'd sprint real fast and get to the spot and then go to another spot. I'm like, wow, this is it's getting me into shape. It's not too bad.
Yeah.
Rich, I got one last question for Coach if you don't have anything before we get in the final four. But Coach, you mentioned when you started coaching, it was because you got hurt, you pulled your hamstring, and that was the end of your running. Being a coach now, what advice would you give your younger self when that happened to you? Or what advice do you give any of your athletes when they get hurt and they might think it's all over?
Yeah, because in that moment, I did have that doubt of what am I going to do with my life now? Like track has been my life for so long, and I had expectations that I was gonna, hopefully make it to the Olympics one day. And when all that did happen, I had to have some realization that I can't just self pity. I have to figure out what am I going to do next. So when the opportunity of coaching opened up, I realized this is where I'm supposed to be. I wasn't supposed to continue running. My journey as a collegiate and professional athlete, unfortunately, was over. But this is my new destiny, and that was to be a track and field coach. And ending up at Marian, felt like that the exact spot that I was supposed to be at the exact moment. I ended up meeting my current fiance while coaching at Marian, and he had a similar history of, he was in California, had a injury that prevented him from making the Olympic trials, and then ended up back at Marian. So, for us to be at the same place at the same time and have a similar story, and me getting into coaching, all I can say is, everything happens for a reason, and God put me to be at Marian.
Very nice. Coach, well, first I want to say, as a distance runner, that men's DMR was very exciting. And like I said, that very entertaining as well. I did not leave my house the entire day on Saturday because I was glued to the NAIA meet. So um, tell the gentleman that I applaud them, and that was a great finish. And I think as track coaches, we say ad nauseum to people to run through the finish line. And
Yep.
the gentleman on your anchor like certainly did that. So kudos to them, and kudos to you and the other coaches for putting on a great show. With that being said, is there anything about the program or about the university at all that we haven't covered that you would like to add?
Yeah, we're kind of hidden. We're smaller school, we're a Catholic school in the NAIA, so we're really trying to get our name out there. And hopefully now with us being, national champions, that people will realize what Marian is and where we're located and, the history that we're making.
And when are the conference championships? Where are they? And
Yeah,
same with when and where are nationals this year?
so conference and nationals will be at the same location. That's going to be at Indiana Wesleyan up in Marion, Indiana. Conference is the first weekend of May, so it's actually on a Thursday, Friday. And then nationals is May 21st through 23rd. Same again, just up at Indiana Wesleyan. So that's where our nationals meet with that last year as well.
Okay, I was going to ask that next. Awesome.
Coach, is the campus in the heart of the city?
So we're on like northwest side, but you can see downtown skyscrapers from our building. So we're just about 10 minutes north of downtown Indianapolis.
Awesome. Anything else, Rich?
Let's get into the Final Four.
All right. Coach, are you a coffee drinker?
I'm not, and I'm actually at Starbucks right now, and I got a hot chocolate, so not a coffee drinker.
All right. Did you get whipped cream on that?
I did.
All right.
Coach, do you have any daily practices or rituals you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of Katie Wise?
Yeah, so I just come in and I'm myself. That's the biggest thing. Pretty much same routine every day, but just making sure I start my day just making the most of everything.
Coach, what are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
Yeah, I would say podcast wise, I like Mr. Ballin. So it's like crazy stories, true stories that he retells. If you haven't heard of it, definitely check it out. Music wise, I listen to R&B and rap music. So try to keep up. I'm not as good as keeping up with the today's stuff as much, but definitely music reader or music, but not much of a reader though.
Okay. Who's controlling the aux cord on the bus trips or the van trips to the meets?
If I'm in a van, sometimes they let me play the aux, or they'll show me, Coach Katie, here's the newest artist you need to listen to. So I try to let the kids pick it out.
All right. Coach, last one we have for you is a little lighthearted one to close it out. Could be anything. Maybe there's a unique food craving in Indianapolis. Maybe there's a craft beverage that you enjoy. You mentioned the R&B and the rap, but maybe you're a closet Swiftie. Do you have a guilty pleasure?
Um, I think I might be obsessed with Thai food.
Okay.
So that's probably Thai food's my go-to. There's Chiang Mai Thai restaurant. I go to a little bit too more than I'd like to admit.
Are you into spicy?
Yes, I like
Yeah.
spicy food.
Okay. All right.
Coach, thank you for pulling up a chair at the local Starbucks to talk to Airey Bros tonight. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and we can't wait to follow the team in outdoor track.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Coach, it was an honor and a pleasure chatting with you this evening. We really do appreciate your time, and we wish you the best of luck with the remainder of the season. And like Jimmy said, we'll be rooting for you. We will be rooting for the Cumberlands a little bit too. Coach Souter, he took a chance on us last year to be the first track coach to really come on and give us a chance with the NAI and kind of kick-started this whole thing with our support. So it's a friendly rivalry. We'll have our shirts cut in half with one side Marian, one side Cumberlands, but
I respect it.
we do appreciate you. So thank you for joining us tonight.
No, thank you guys.
Absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is Coach Katie Wise from Marian University. Be sure to check out the Knights and all they're doing, all the great things on the track, on the cross country course. Be sure to check them out at conference. And it's going to be a highly contested outdoor national championships this year at Indiana Wesleyan, yes?
That's correct. Yeah.
Awesome. And then tomorrow night, we'll be back with storyteller Mick Betancourt. He's a comedian, he's an actor, he's a producer, he's a writer. So we're going to have some great stories from Mick tomorrow, some including maybe some wrestling matches as well. So tune in for that. And then on Wednesday, we'll be back with Coach Cole Spree from Indian Hills Community College in Iowa. They were the NJCAA National Wrestling Champions. So thank you for joining. This is Monday evening. We will see you back same time tomorrow.